Well, hello and welcome to MFC TV's mid-season review of the season 2016-17. We're going to talk all things Motherwell, and I'm joined by two men who know a thing or two and are going to chip in with some stuff, I'm sure. Well, as we find ourselves in the mid-season break, it's the perfect time to look back on what we've had so far. Our first guest is the familiar, if not overly biased voice of MFC TV's commentary, and he's joined by a second man here, Scott Mullen, whose voice isn't as biased, but he can't be in his position as the group sports writer at the Times and Herald. So, gentlemen, welcome along. And firstly, I'm going to start with you, Graham. We'll go right back to the start and we'll look at, obviously, competitive football got underway nice and early with the Betfred Cup. What did you make of the new format and also the start to the season? Motherwell obviously progressed from the group with 9 points. It was an alright start.
No, I think it was. I think it was a good idea. I've always been a kind of supporter of the group stages, because I remember that when I was a lot younger. It used to be that's how the season started, and I think it helped because we went into competitive football a lot earlier, and none of this pre-season friendly stuff where you come along here and see an English team bring their third 11 along and we watch a training session. I think seeing, obviously we started with the Rangers game, which was really competitive right at the start, and then did professional jobs, I think, for me against Annan, Stranraer and East Stirling. And I think it helped us going to the Kilmarnock game. We were ready for competitive football at that stage. So I think it worked really well. And I think the whole tournament, just from a non-Motherwell perspective, to get it done by November was a good thing as well. And it means we can now concentrate on the Scottish Cup coming up starting in January.
And of course, knocked out at the hands of Celtic, who went on to win the Cup, Scott. But generally a positive start.
I would say so. It's a competition and it's a structure that is perfect for a club like Motherwell, who, with all due respect, aren't going to go to Florida for a fortnight in the summer or aren't going to go to Dubai in the winter. Thought I'd just drop that in. But it's perfect. Also, for the stage that Motherwell is at just now, where they're not playing European football, so it is some competitive games. For me, where the format of the Betfred Cup falls down, and it's probably nothing, it doesn't affect Motherwell at the moment, is the whole thing for me is to get competitive games early for the teams that need it. And to be honest, I think the teams that need it most are the European teams. But they seem to get a veto, not a veto. They get a bypass through at the next round. Yeah. So it's not, for me, it's not really benefiting the teams that need it. However, this season you can't doubt that it helped Motherwell. Obviously, they lost the first game to Rangers, but they were competitive in that game. I was at Annan. They played well. A wee bit of a wobble in the first half. But from there they really kicked on until obviously they fell at the hands of Celtic. But no, I know the defeat at Parkhead was quite a heavy one, but that probably benefited the team in the other games they played against Celtic, because if they hadn't have got a tanking in that League Cup game, they probably would have gone to Parkhead about a month or so later on league duty and get thumped as well. So it helped. I know it's not nice, but probably helped get that out of the system earlier on and get them firing a little bit earlier.
Of course, and it was a great start to the competitive football in the league as well with that win over Kilmarnock. But things slightly, stumbled a little bit from there on. What have you made of the first 6 months of the season?
I think we've been a wee bit unlucky in the first 6 months of the season that Carl McHugh was obviously going to be one of the key guys to play in midfield, and got that head knock in the first game, and has only recently come back into the team in the last two games or so. And we've seen what he can do in those two games. That's been a big loss for us. Then Marvin Johnson going away and not probably being replaced 100% has meant this, for me at times, without criticising anybody in Motherwell TV, that the side has been unbalanced at times. It's been difficult to replace that pace of Marvin Johnson. Also, Louis Moult out at the start didn't help us as well. You can see the contribution he's made since he came back into the side. So there's been a lot of factors that have led to some of the inconsistencies, I think, that we've seen. But I think overall, now that we've kind of settled the side down a wee bit, the last couple of games have shown, the last 4 or 5 games in fact, the draw against St Johnstone, the win against Inverness, and the draw on Saturday against Hamilton has seen it stabilise things a wee bit and pick up points. I think we've got over that, and I'm beginning to see some consistency in team selection and some consistency in performance. So hopefully when we come back, and we've got a tough start when we come back, obviously, after this winter break, but I think we could start to see us kick on after the winter break.
It's something that Mark kind of said himself a couple of weeks ago to us, that he feels as if the season, the team hasn't really started yet. They've not really had a good run. And he also said, kind of in the following breath, that the games against Inverness and Hamilton will define their season. And said if we lose both of them, we don't have a right to claim that we're a top 6 team. Now, no pressure. I mean, if they come through it, and really, I wasn't at the game in Hogmanay, but looking at the footage on Motherwell TV, they easily could have won it. It wasn't as I don't want to say they should have. It makes it sound a negative, but I think the Hamilton goalkeeper had a brilliant game. There's a few terrific saves.
Absolutely.
So I think that what Graham is saying is right. Motherwell seem to be coming good at a right time of the season. Ideally, they'd be playing games just now, but it means that it gives guys. It gives guys like Blythe a chance to come back and get a little bit fitter. Chrissy Kaz to shake off the knock that he's had, and maybe some of the guys who have been doing a couple of days of training and then playing a chance to get further forward. And obviously, Carol McHugh is one of them as well.
Yeah, well, Mark McGee mentioned that, and of course Keith Laz as well, who's been out. That gives him time to recover. So maybe the break, it's maybe going to disrupt some of the form when we're picking up, but it does give time to recover, and we've only just recovered from the Hamilton game. I have to say, we have to talk about that. Despite going down to 10 men to get a point, that was a big result, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mentioned it during the game. So one of the things that I've been concerned about is a resilience during games at times, and I think the Inverness game here, for example, when we lost 3-0, we competed for an hour, lost a goal and then seemed to lose our way, and that concerned me a bit during the early part of the season. But I think on Saturday, going down to 10 men and showing the resilience that we did, and I think we said it just before the goal, just before we lost the plot completely, but to keep going into the dying stages and believing that they could win, I think was a big statement. As not win, actually draw. I think that was a big statement from the team on the day, and getting you can see the reaction. Even Craig Sampson ran the full length of the pitch to celebrate. But you can see what it meant to get that additional point, and it just shows you how big that point actually was. So no, I think that those two games have proved to be pretty key for me taking 4 points. I think if I put down in my notes here, if we'd taken nothing from them, goodness knows what the conference level would have been going into the two Rangers games coming up. But having taken 4 points, and the fourth point in the manner that we did, I think sets us up nicely for coming back.
Yeah.
And Scott, I just want to touch, you mentioned there about Mark McGee saying those games were pivotal. How important now is this break in terms of perhaps new additions or anything like that? Do you see that as being key to the next stage of the season?
Well, I think the club are looking to maybe add one or two, but as we know, the budget here is not huge. Too busy spending it on video cameras. No, the club are in a position. I think Mark said that last week. There may be something. There's a little bit of flexibility to maybe bring somebody in. What Graham said is right. I don't think there has been a natural replacement for Marvin Johnson. I think people were probably hoping that Lionel would kick on and burst into the team to see the form that we've seen of him. Bits and bobs during the chances that he's had over the last year, but prior to that, the consistent run these first season or so. I don't want to be unfair to Lionel, but that's not really happened. But again, the two players for me are very, very different. I think the fans maybe thought that, it's all right because Lionel there. But I think Marvin's was always a little bit more direct. Just get the ball down, head down, knock it beyond the defender and run. Yeah. Whereas that's not the kind of game that you're going to get from Lionel. So I think if the club could try and bring in somebody like that, it would be fantastic. But it's easier said than done. Players with that kind of pace. There's also. I noticed Mark had said last week that he would be certainly open to the thought of bringing Stephen Pearson back now. He's returning from India with his with some more experience under his belt and looking for another opportunity. And he knows the club here as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't certainly interested or keen to come back. But I think, to be honest, I think the squad is in a good place. It's quite strong. I think Luka Belic is now gone back to West Ham. That didn't work out here for him, so there may be some room there in the squad to try and add one more at least.
And what have you made of the new additions that came in the summer? Richard Tate and Ben Hennigan have been stalwarts, Craig Clay as well, and they've really settled in nicely, haven't they?
Yeah, they have indeed, and those three are probably the three that have been pretty well. The ones that played every week. Yeah. I've not missed a game between them. I don't think the three of them. And I think Richard Tate, we've mentioned it, Scott and I on commentary as well, that he's probably the first genuine right back we've had for a number of years, and that's no criticism of Josh Law and anybody else who's played in that position in recent times. He is just a solid right back, but he can also get forward. I think he's given us one goal anyway and 5 or 6 assists this season as well. So I think that's helped balance the right hand side of the team. Ben Hennigan, I've known him many times, we say that's another block from tremendous block from Ben Hennigan as he throws his body in the way and he provides an aerial threat going forward. I think you've mentioned him already in some of the interviews you've done with him that not quite get a goal from him yet from a set piece, but I'm sure it will come. Yeah. And Craig Clay has been a steady influence in midfield, gathering the ball, pushing it on, keeping the play alive. Maybe not quite as in your face and as impressive as the first two, but he does that kind of dirty work in midfield, the fetching and carrying, and I think that's what we needed as well alongside Laz. And I think the three of them have fitted in really well, and I've been to see. I don't know what happened with Lee Lucas. I've been impressed by him as well. I know he's out of contract now, and obviously get his red card on Saturday. Then I think if we could get him in again, that would be a good move as well, because he looks like a really talented footballer. So those three plus Lee Lucas have been the standouts. And you mentioned another one actually, Blythe, who we haven't seen yet. He'll be like a new signing. You talked about potential new signings. If we can get him fit and get him playing, that's another potential new signing like Carol McHugh. We've almost got two new signings without signing anybody in January.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been unlucky with injury, and he's had to. I'm sure he's had to have a procedure. You guys might know better than me, but I'm sure he's had a couple of issues which hasn't helped him. It's just been unlucky. You can sign these guys in July or June, and you're now in January, you don't hear from them. The fans automatically think, well, he must be a dud. He's not. He's just been unlucky. As far as I'm aware, he's just been unlucky. But just to touch on what Graham said there, I actually think Craig Clay, as much as I've been impressed with Ben Hennigan and Richard Tate, for me, Craig Clay has been the best out of the three of them. I think his calmness in the midfield has helped an awful lot, especially if Motherwell are getting pressed. Like the game against Celtic springs to mind here. If the play's getting kind of pressed and Motherwell are sitting in deep, he doesn't panic. He gets the ball in. Yeah, I'd say certainly Ben, Richard, and Craig have been fantastic.
There was a new appointment. It was a familiar face, of course, but James McFadden became assistant manager this season. What have you made of what he's done so far in this role?
It's always hard for us to. I find it strange actually watching him in the dugout now doing that job, obviously beside Mark, and actually when Mark was suspended out there on out front and having a word with the fourth official and doing all that kind of stuff. It's kind of strange to see that. First of all, I've been watching him as a player for so long. From what I've seen behind the scenes, obviously we get a wee bit of exposure on a Saturday. He seems to be taking the job in his stride. He seems to be loving the role. The players obviously respect him. They know him. And he can bring a lot to the table, obviously, with the career that he's had, not only here but down in England with Birmingham, Everton, and Sunderland. So he's going to bring a lot to the table. And initially, you're a bit like, that seems a strange move, but when you actually take a step back and think about it, it's a natural progression for Faddy from playing, and it's a natural progression for the club. It's kind of what the club's done. We did it with Scott Leach as well. If you think back when Mark was here the last time as well. So, and I think it's a great step for the man himself. The only slightly downside is he's not featured very often as a player as a result. Now he was back on the bench on Saturday for the first time for a couple of months. But you still would like to see maybe a wee bit more of a contribution from him as a player. Obviously, he came on against Hearts a few months ago and scored that free kick at the end, albeit we're 3 down at the time. But you can still see those glimpses of what he can do on the pitch as well.
I spoke to him after that game. He came into the press room after it, and I said, "Good goal, good free kick." He's like, I can kick it, I just can't move. That's what he said after it. I think he's been a bit harsh on himself. I mean, Faddy's spoken to the press, and he spoke to myself about this, that he doesn't want to put him and Mark don't want to put him in either on the pitch or on the bench if there are boys or under 20s there that can also fill that role. And I can appreciate that, and I think it's commendable that he's got that approach, and that's maybe why that Mark has looked at him to be that assistant manager, because he's putting others first. However, I do still think that he has a trick in him, and he has a vision and a pass, and I think he still has a quality that Motherwell fans have known that he's had over the last kind of 10-15 years. And I like Graham. I still think he could be contributing on the pitch. I'm sure Faddy and Mark know better than us two agents. But I still think he has got a role to play in this team. I don't know. Maybe he might feature a little bit more after the January break.
And one of the big responsibilities, of course, for Faddy and the manager as well, Mark McGee, is that integrating these young boys into the team. We have to speak about the under-20s this season. Under Stephen Craigan have been fantastic. Obviously, they got all the headlines with that 9-1 win over Aberdeen. But for me, the most impressive thing is the way that they've come into the first team and slotted in with, without bringing too much attention to themselves. It's been quite seamless, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. And it's almost like the media haven't noticed either. I mean that disrespectfully, Scott, but it's kind of like everybody else gets this kind of, they're bringing their young players through. Aki's are great at bringing young players through. The United have been great at bringing young players through, and we don't seem to get that recognition.
I feel a Project Brave rant coming on.
Well, there could be. Yeah, you're right, because it goes back to I think there's been a steady progression though over the last, not just this season, but it goes back kind of in the last season with Ben Hall came in last January, which kind of opened the door a wee bit, I think, for the rest of them, and thought, wait a minute, we've got an opportunity here. then winning and Cadden as well. So the two of them coming in middle of last season kind of opened the door a bit, and then winning the Youth Cup has helped them. And then we mentioned before we came on air that they got a chance to play in the Challenge Cup this year against Edinburgh City, who they beat pretty comfortably, and then Airdrie, who they competed well with Airdrie, who are now competing at the top of League One. So they've had a natural progression and development that they're ready. Now, I think some of them, and it's hard to believe how young some of them are. You know, Alan Campbell was only 18, I think, when he made his first start on Saturday, and didn't look out of place at all. Competed well, battled well, as have Jack McMillan. Not necessarily playing in a position he wants to be in at left back, but he's done well. Ross McLean's been a bit unlucky, obviously, with breaking his toe, but he made a great start to his time coming into the team as well. We've also seen David Ferguson, Jake Hasty come in, and I've seen them a couple of times. I saw him beat Rangers the other week. And we've also got guys like Fry, Mackin, Maguire and Turnbull who have been on the bench this season and doing well for the 20s. So there's almost a whole team of the 20s pushing to get into the first team here, and I think that's great for the club. And we know the model of the club as well. We need to do that. We need to put certain players on, which where Project Brave kind of does threaten not the existence of the club, but certainly the business model of the club if we don't get elite academy status.
Well, I mean, I've spoken to Mark about this, and I've spoken to Alan Burrows as well with a piece in the Herald and Evening Times on Thursday. With Alan, they kind of touched on this, and you mentioned there the phrase that threatens the extinction of the club. It wasn't far. Speaking to the two of them, it wasn't far off what the doomsday scenario was from this, and it's something that I know that Alan is quite keen for Malky Mackay to get out here and look at the club, look at the academy, speak to Craigs, speak to Mark, speak to everybody around about the club to just kind of emphasise the good work that the club are doing. You know, if you look at the players that Motherwell have brought through over the last kind of 10-15 years for the Scotland national team, Motherwell, take away Rangers, Celtic, and perhaps a couple of the big city clubs, but even then, take away Rangers and Celtic and look at, you know, you've got guys like Stephen Pearson, James McFadden, David Clarkson played, Lee McCulloch went on, you know, I think people forget, you know, going back a fair bit now, but Lee McCulloch came through here as well. I think Stephen Saunders got called up as well, Stevie Hamill. You know, give him an example of another non-city club that has done that. And I think it would be I was going to say naive. It would be wrong for the club to be overlooked, especially as you say. You look at the past. No mother will talk about the past, present, future. You look at the past. You've got the present where you've got the under-20s of the Scottish Youth Cup champions, and then for the future you've got that other generation of players coming through. For me, Chris Cadden will be the next big thing here. I mean that sounds, you know, it doesn't sound as if I'm giving away any secrets. Anybody who has watched him over the last year will have seen what Chris can bring to this team. You know, he's got a power, he's got a physique. You and I were both at the Youth Cup final at Hampden, and he looked like a man playing in a kids game. You know, he looked like one of these guys that are maybe in the first team that are looking to get back to fitness and have to go and play on the 20s game. You know, he's strong, he's powerful. The way he just gathers the ball and sprays it out. He is the one that is catching the attention, I would say. You know, there was a lot of furore about him not getting included in the Scotland setup. He then did get included in the Scotland setup, but that maybe helped him actually. See not getting into that team, it maybe brought him to the attention of a few people who thought, I don't know who this kid is. But then the next time their team comes and plays Motherwell, they can think, all right, okay, and it is blatantly obvious, you know, why he's so highly thought of here and why the club have given him 2 contract extensions within the space of a year. It's not really about extending his term, but it's about getting him on the terms that he deserves. And I think he's been terrific. I don't think he's been at his best over the last month or so. I don't know if I know he's now out injured, but I think he's had a couple of little niggles which probably haven't helped him. You and I have a constant battle over whether we prefer to see him in the right or prefer to. I'd quite like him to be in the middle in a kind of Stephen Pearson role, driving through the middle. But as long as he's back fit before too long, that's all that matters.
Just on youth development, Lewis, one of the things I noticed, the Ackies always do it. You'd see their team sheet on Saturday. They put an A beside the academy graduates that they have. So I put a wee A beside ours, and we had one more academy graduate playing on Saturday, in the 17 than they had. Yeah, I was including Faddy, to be fair. He did come through a long time ago, but I think they had 6 in their squad, and we had 7. Yeah, and this is one of the clubs that's been pushed for the elite status, and you think it's just doesn't make sense. And while we're touching on it, I think Stephen Craigan, you just touched on his name just as you made the introduction. Since Stephen came in, the change in the under-20s has just been incredible. I know there's always been an element that development's more important or as important as winning, but Stephen seems to have developed both. No, the development is important, but so is winning, and I think that's helping them a lot as well. And when you watch them, it doesn't let them off with any mistake, does he?
No.
On the sidelines, he's barking at them and not in a negative way. I don't think he's encouraging them. He's trying to get them to do the right things. And even after the 9-1 game when they beat Aberdeen, he was still saying that there's still room for improvement for some of them. And I'm pleased he's picking up guys like Dylan Mackin, who's obviously putting a lot of work. He's maybe not had such a stellar season maybe as last season, but you can see he's bulked up. He's ready to bully centre halves, and he got his reward on Saturday, being on the bench against the Ackies. So, Craigs has identified these things, and the boys are obviously listening and taking it on, and that can only be for the benefit of the club as well.
He's brought an intensity to the under-20s, which I think a lot of, certainly the first team players that go down, I'm not specifically talking about Motherwell, but first team players when they go and play under-20s, it's a friendly, it's a bounce game for them to get fit. And there's perhaps, I'd imagine it can be easy at a club like Motherwell when the under-20s and the young players it's just that seems a natural kind of filter into the first team. The actual results part of playing under-20s maybe could get lost. It's all about just trying to show off what you can do. But if you've got Craigs there who's, as you say, roaring at them to be disciplined and do all these kind of things, that is a natural benefit for them as well. It kind of keeps them focused. And
we were touching on Chris Cadney earlier, and we were saying you can see how he's come on in the past year roughly. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, some of the bigger clubs might get spoke about as having better setups in terms of facilities or whatever for the youth players, but you can't put a price on the experience of going out there for the first team and getting game time, and that is something that Motherwell are doing a lot more than any other club, really, giving these young players a chance to go out there on a Saturday and do their thing.
I think probably since we were in administration back in the early 2000s, I think that's been a big thing for us. Young players have got a chance here, including Faddy, Keith Lasley, David Clarkson, Paul Quinn, all the ones you mentioned earlier on going back. And it's been one of these things, we maybe lost a wee bit, and we're beginning to get back again, and I think it is crucial that they do get game time. I think those two games I mentioned earlier against Edinburgh City and Airdrie, and after them, I spoke to Craigs, you were away, and I spoke to Craigs after the Airdrie game. I said, how do you keep that going? Because they've had two very competitive games against league sides. Then they go back to playing in front of nobody, their mums and dads and one or two people like myself who can make it along, and that intensity goes. But I think getting them in the first team, even on the bench, it must help them, because they're in with Mark McGee, listening to the pre-match and half-time stuff and the post-match stuff before, and being just part of it. It's just an invaluable experience, and even if they're only getting 10-15 minutes at the end, like some of them have, like Jake Hasty, who's had a couple of tastes of it, it can only be whetting their appetite and saying, I want more of that.
Absolutely. And we're just going to start to wind things down a little bit now. I know we probably will still waffle on for a little bit longer. But just looking ahead now, we spoke about the results and how that's really put a positive spin on the end of the year, so to speak. Looking ahead, we're not too far off the top six now. Are you encouraged going forward now?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I think just the last 5 or 6 games, I kind of looked ahead at one point and thought, this is a tough spell coming up, because we had Hearts, Celtic, Aberdeen twice, and then away trips to Inverness and Hearts and St Johnstone amongst that. And I kind of feared that we could be, I think I did mention it on air at one point, that we could be bottom and maybe bottom by 2 or 3 points. But to take a point off of St Johnstone away, I know they did beat them 3-0 the weekend, but we've had a terrible record up there. 6 defeats in a row before we went up there and took the draw. To win at Inverness and then take the point against 10 men, I think it given me some confidence. I think that Carol McHugh coming back is just a massive thing for us as well. But I think the results in the last 4 or 5 games have given me enough heart to think that we'll get the ability to kick on and not worry about looking back, but start to look up.
And in terms of that 6th spot, it has to be said, the top 5 look reasonably cemented. Who's going to be that major competition for Motherwell for that 6th spot? Is it every team in the bottom half? Do you see one team drifting away, or is there going to be one team that really pushes Motherwell for that 6th spot?
I think you will start to see over the next month nothing will happen, but by the time you get to the end of February, I really do think that teams will start to get isolated. My gut feeling is you might see Hamilton, maybe Kilmarnock kind of start to break away a little bit. I think Dundee are a surprise package, because I know they've lost Greg Stewart and Kane Hemmings in the summer, but as Graham said, they thump St Johnstone and Hogmanay. They do have that in them to still get goals. But Ilbak Tui, which I know was on Motherwell's radar around about a year ago, he got a goal on Hogmanay as well, and it looks as if he's maybe starting to find the form that quite rightly got him a lot of attention when he was at Dunfermline. I think Dundee could start to do something. But Motherwell, let's be honest, Motherwell on paper, and you and I have said this quite a few times. I've spoken to my colleagues in the press box. When you look at Motherwell on paper, on an 11, they really are as strong as a St Johnstone, as a Dundee, as these kind of teams. There's a lot of experience through that spine of the team. You've got Craig Sampson, you've got Steve McManus in defence, Stevie Hamill as well. Midfield, you've got Keith Lasley as well. Up front, you've got Scott McDonald. That's a solid spine to that team. Added then, you've got young players like Louis Moult, Chris Cadden, Ben Hennigan, Richard Tate. You've got quality players. There's not that is the thing I think that is perhaps the difference this season to what Motherwell fans have seen the last couple of years with no disrespect to them, to a lot of the players that have become in under 20s. They've been shirt fillers, I think, until they've been stopgaps until Stevie Hamill comes back from injured, or Laz comes back, or Faddy comes back, or there's always been an element of kind of, it's not short-termism from the management side of things, but it's maybe always been a look of, that player's done well in under 20s, let's put them in, and we'll get by until the pro comes back. Whereas this year has a kind of different feel about it. It started last season whenever Ben Hall came in, when nobody really knew who he was, and he came in, and within about 3-4 months, he's got a move to Brighton, and away he goes. I think there is a shift change in the quality of the under 20s, and a lot of that is down to Stephen Craigan as well. That I think they've stepped up, they've got better, and they're really beginning to push now into the first team. So with all this coming together, I think the break will be good for Motherwell, but I do still think they have it in them to be a top 6 team. But they're going to have to try and find some consistency, which, in fairness, over the last couple of weeks they've started to show.
Goals haven't really been a problem in terms of the teams chasing that top 6 spot. We're one of the top scoring sides, I think second top scoring side. Is a goal of the season for you, Graham, so far?
You said as a heads up in the questions yesterday. I was trying to scratch my head, and I think the obvious one for me, that's maybe not obvious, is Louis Moult's
swing.
First goal against Celtic, but I think it was Steve McManus's pass, that diagonal ball that he does from left to right, does very often, pings it with his left foot. But Louis Moult's vision to know it's coming, keep himself on side, and then see the goalkeeper, and have the ability and the quality just to knock it over his head and set us up for 2-goal lead at half time, which obviously we couldn't hold on to. But I thought it was just a fantastic. If it had been a goal in the Barclays Premier League, we'd have had it rammed down our throat for months and months and months until it only happens in this league.
Scott, yourself?
I was going to say that, but also the one only a couple of weeks ago against Aberdeen, Scott McDonald's overhead bicycle kick, scorpion volley. I'm not quite sure. Remember, I did the match report that night for the paper, and I wasn't quite sure how to describe it. It's like, can I put it in over his head? That was a terrific goal. Also, going back to the first game of the season, forget Lionel scored a brilliant goal that day, went through 1-on-1 with the keeper and chipped him. It was a brilliant finish, and I think we all hoped at that point that would be the start of Lionel beginning to kick on in the first team. And looking back over the last 6 months, that's maybe not quite happened the way Motherwell support would have wanted, or even Lionel himself. But those goals are and obviously the one against Celtic here from Louis Moult was absolutely spectacular. I think all three of them would be fit to grace any pitch anywhere at any time.
And player of the season so far, who's been the standout for you, Graham?
A number of candidates. I think the three new guys actually, Tate, Hennigan and Clay have a shout, and Chris Cadden. But I think the man that makes a difference for us is Louis Moult. I think the fact he scored 11 goals so far this season, I think we didn't struggle without him, but we kind of had a wee bit of a false start, and then Louis came in and hit the road running against the Ackies, and has scored repeatedly for us since then. So I'm going to go for maybe the obvious again, Louis Moult.
And yourself, Scott?
I'm going to sit in a three-way fence. It really is hard to pick between, as Graham said earlier on, between the new guys of Ben, Richard, and Craig Clay as well. Scott McDonald's adding more goals to his game as well, and is becoming increasingly more influential. He managed. It was him that won the ball back on Saturday. maybe controversially. I saw him in sports scene, he wasn't really kind of saying too much about it. As Massimo Donati get bundled over, I think he's got a lot. He's improved, brought more to his game. The link-up play between him and Louis Moulton's got even better, and Louis Moulton himself. I'm struggling, to be honest, because there are 3 or 4 candidates that have done really well. I think Keith Lasley's done a brilliant start to the season as well. Every year Laz comes back and the usual grumbles from these stands, he's past it, he's too old. There is no evidence for me. There is no evidence of it. He mixes it as best he can. Won a penalty. I don't know what he was doing that far forward in the Aberdeen game. It was him that won the penalty in the Aberdeen game. There are so many players here that have done well, and that's why I'm fairly confident that Motherwell won't be anywhere near 12th or 11th spot by the end of the season, because there are players here that we've known for a couple of years are good players, and it's just about getting them playing well. Whereas this season, I think they've shown even more signs that they've got that in them to do it on a more consistent basis, and we've seen that already over the last couple of weeks as well.
Well, we brought the two of you along because we thought that you had valuable opinions, and you've contributed well.
We've got opinions. I don't know if they're valuable.
But we'll put that to a vote for Motherwell fans as well.
Oh, please don't.
Go and see if you agree with the guys or if they're just talking absolute nonsense. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me. It's been fantastic. I've enjoyed chatting away, and I'm sure we'll keep chatting once the cameras stop rolling as well. But we'll likely reconvene at the end of the season, and hopefully in a positive situation there. So
get the passport out.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy it. Cheers.